In this video we are going to take a closer look at a potential Doomsday scenario that is about to happen coming January. The discontinuation of our Army of Renown, the Kill Team Strike Force, leaving us with nothing but our outdated Deathwatch supplement. But is it really going to be as bad as we may think? Over the course of the video, we will first take a quick look at what is about to happen coming January, at least as much as we already know. In the second part, we will then go through possibilities and data sheets that are now opening up again without the Army of Renown restrictions. Lastly, there will be a quick wrap up of what has been covered.
Welcome to SwissHammer, your channel for modeling in Warhammer 40k. My name is Tammer and I will be guiding you through this video.
Back in April, GW released a document called Content Validity Updates, which is available as free download on the Warhammer community website. In a nutshell, this document lists which Psychic Awakening, campaign books and Flashpoint rules are still up to date. What stands out here for the Deathwatch is the Warzone Octarius 1 Rising Tide entry, which lists our Army of Renown, the Kill Team Strike Force, with an expiry date of January 2023. For the Deathwatch, this is of course reason for concern, as our Army of Renown is not only highly competitive, but also ties perfectly into the lore of our faction. I have covered this content validity update and what it potentially means for the Deathwatch in greater detail in a previous video. The link is in the description. As of late November, with barely 6 weeks to go until January, we still have no word from GW on whether these deadlines are going to be extended or if alternatives are given at all. What they did confirm in their latest MetaWatch video series is that January will hold a series of potentially massive changes to the game. They did not specify any exact dates or any specific order, but there will be the Monitorum Field Manual, aka the points updates, the balanced data slate, as well as the release of a new Warzone campaign book. The sum of these as of yet to be revealed changes makes it very difficult to reliably predict future changes to the Deathwatch. So basically all we have left at this point is to prepare for the worst, aka no Army of Renown and yet another zero round of Space Marine content, though I remain a bit positive, as Stu Black, the lead games developer of Warhammer 40k, singled out Space Marine troop choices, particularly struggling in the current meta game. In addition to that, our dear Stu recently went 0-5 at the Coventry GT, ending up on rank 106 out of 111, playing Ultramarine successors. I guess shock tactics just didn't work out the way he expected after all. His list featured a lot of regular troops, as well as both Bolter Inceptor and Eliminator squads. While I remain hopeful that this has been a first-hand experience in how poorly Space Marines and troops in particular are doing at this point, it would not surprise me if he will increase Inceptor and Eliminator point costs as a response. After all, it would be about as accurate as his recent MetaWatch analysis leading up to the last balanced data slate. With this out of the way, let's get a bit more positive and focus on what possibilities and datasheets will be opening up for Deathwatch once again outside of the Army of Renown restrictions. First and perhaps most encouraging is the handling of specialisms and minimum-sized units. While I think that specialisms have more than proven their worth, especially after the recent points drops, we might not necessarily want to give them to each and every kill team we are including in our list. Furthermore, precisely because every kill team has to be upgraded with a specialism, this often results in the dilemma of not being able to include a minimum-sized kill team to fill up a list without having to spend a specialism that will then only apply to these 5 guys. Without the Army of Renown, these restrictions will be gone, and we can go back to bringing along a default squad of our standard troops like Deathwatch veterans or incursors. Furthermore, while kill teams are arguably the main strength of our faction, there are still plenty of competitive Space Marine datasheets left that can be put to good use in the Deathwatch. One of my personal favorites are the Blade Guard veterans, which are excellent value for their points, given their storm shields and mastercrafted power swords with AP-3 and damage 2. My recommendation would be running them as 5 to avoid the blast rule, which results in 175 points, which is very hard to beat even with Deathwatch veterans trying to somewhat replicate similar loadouts. One downside is of course that they won't have OPSEC, in which case Rites of War could be interesting again, and perhaps a transport to get them across the battlefield faster. Speaking of Rites of War, the OPSEC problem will of course present itself for all non-troops datasheets, and while starting CP has been a huge issue in Warzone Nephilim, we do not yet know whether GW will continue to use these rules in the new campaign book. On this, as with many other things, we will just have to wait and see. Another great pick are Assault Centurions, which can benefit from wound rerolls, Teleportarium, or even Fortified with Contempt in the Deathwatch. I have covered these bulky guys in greater detail in a previous video, including how to make their loadouts fully exchangeable, as well as how to best use them in the Deathwatch. The link is in the description. With the Monitorum Field manual around the corner, maybe the Devastator version will see further points decreases. GW has been known to keep doing it for the same datasheets multiple times, in which case I think they will start to look quite attractive. Next in line are Dreadnoughts, which used to be the staple of Deathwatch lists prior to the introduction of our Army of Renown. But what has happened since? Next to points increases to both Redemptors and the twin Volkites of the Relic Contemptor, what really hurts the latter is the Martial Legacy tax combined with the previously mentioned Warzone Nephilim CP rules. Should either Martial Legacy go away, or these CP rules change again, Relic Contemptors will suddenly become far more attractive, and Redemptors have never been bad in the first place, it's just that it was no longer worth it to run a trio of them and abandoning the Army of Renown for it. In addition to Dreadnoughts, what also used to be popular in competitive play were indirect fire vehicles like the Zikaran Arcus or the Whirlwind. Now the balanced data slate has pretty much killed indirect fire for anyone but Imperial Guard, and as a result, any such artillery datasheets, except for the Whirlwind, are dead. The reason the Whirlwind remains an option is due to the suppression fire stratagem, which disables Overwatch, set to defend, and makes the unit fight last. However, remember that the Whirlwind has to actually score a hit for the stratagem to work. As a result, any indirect fire will end up being less reliable than it used to be. Speaking of fight last, while certainly also available in Army of Renown lists, the Judiciary remains a valid pick for both type of lists, and should the whole limited starting CP situation change again in the new campaign book, giving him the Warlord trait Oathkeeper for heroic intervention on steroids could become more attractive again, due to potentially saving points on specialisms and or maxed out kill teams. He might also be easier to fit into future competitive lists. Speaking of kill teams, even outside of regular troops, there might be a case to be made for playing certain datasheets as their own squads, even though they could be included into kill teams. Among those, I would count Eliminators, Inceptors, Hellblasters and Eradicators. I would also add Suppressors as good candidates, but they technically cannot be included into kill teams at this point, even though I think GW should finally unlock them for the 40s kill team. Anyway, at 75 points, the Eliminators are the cheapest unit with concealed positions, and they get the extra movement ability from the Instigator Bolt Carbine of the Sergeant. While I still think that a Spectre's kill team with Eliminators will remain mandatory, the benefits of splitting 4 with a Helix Adept are simply too many, there is nothing wrong with taking both that Spectre's kill team as well as an additional squad of Eliminators. Suppressors, on the other hand, are the cheapest deep strike unit available, and while they work better in other chapters that can negate the moving with heavy weapons penalty, they can nonetheless be interesting due to their weapon profile and the ability to turn off Overwatch on a hit. I have covered both the eliminators and suppressors in previous videos, the links are in the description. Furthermore, Inceptors, Hellblasters and Eradicators all work well in the Deathwatch regardless of whether they are on their own or get some extra ablative wounds in kill teams. Both Plasma and Meltas will potentially become far more interesting without access to Specialism Extremis as our auto-wounding option. Prior to the Army of Renown, Michael Costello used to run a full squad of Hellblasters, and I think their weapon profile is very solid against power armor, and even better if you can overcharge with the mandatory hit reroll bubble nearby. For the Eradicators, the old issue of the kill team has to fire at the same target in order to get total obliteration remains, but this can be partly solved by splitting them into combat squads mixed with heavy intercessors, in which case the Eradicators keep some ablative wounds and less overall shots go to waste. Then last but not least, we get the Agents of the Imperium option back, allowing us to bring along an Inquisitor, Assassins, or as of late even Knights. As far as the latter goes, I think big knights are out of the picture, as we are already playing an elite-style army and are in constant need of additional bodies, but perhaps some of the small knights could be an interesting addition. For Inquisitors and Assassins, also check out my previous video coverage, Greyfax I am taking you back. Where I'm currently holding my breath for Space Marine vehicles outside of Dreadnoughts in general, I think we need to see some balanced status late changes for these, and also company veterans remain dead for now, and I don't see servitors as the reliable action monkeys of old in the current mission settings. There might still be some screening potential, but I would wait for the rules updates in January before making any investments. Overall, while I remain hopeful that GW will throw both Deathwatch and Space Marines a bone in January, we also have to be realistic about the release schedule. With end of the year holidays and all, should GW not release anything by mid-December, I consider it highly unlikely that they will push any content up until mid-January, which would mean that even in case they are going to fix everything, we would still be left with a couple of weeks without the Army of Renown and updated rules. While I have been holding back on doing any major investments as of late, I am slowly working on my backlog, readying up some additional heavy intercessors, suppressors and Deathwatch veteran loadouts for whatever the future may bring in January. To wrap things up, over the course of the video, we have looked at the content validity update, about to discontinue our Army of Renown coming January, and the series of rules updates that GW has confirmed at this point. These include the Monitorum Field Manual for points, the next balanced status slate, as well as a new campaign book. While our Army of Renown and picking chapter tactics would be sorely missed, such a removal also opens up the possibility to bring back competitive datasheets outside of kill teams. Several already great performers like Blade Guard veterans or eliminators aside, a lot also depends on points and campaign changes. In case the matter of starting CP changes again, for the better, or Martial Legacy tax gets removed, Relic Contenders can become an option again, or Dreadnought lists in general. The removal of Specialism Extremis in combination with several new codex releases would also make Plasma and Meltas more attractive, in which case Hellblaster or Eradicator squads might be preferable over their actual kill teams. Last but not least, I am keeping my fingers crossed for Space Marine troops discounts and the vehicle rule rework, in which case I might finally be able to justify getting myself a Fire Raptor. Yes, it had to be said at some point in this video. Anyway, there are certainly interesting times ahead of us. So that's it for the potential Doomsday scenario of losing our Army of Renown, the Kill Team Strike Force, by coming January. What do you guys think is going to happen, and how are you currently preparing for it? Will you miss our Army of Renown, or are you looking forward to playing different styles of lists once more? Let me know in the comments. Finally, I would also like to mention that there is a SwissHammer Facebook page where I will be posting links to my videos as well as articles I find of interest. I do read a lot about the hobby, but not all of it will always end up as its own video. I look forward to seeing you there as well. I do also have a Patreon page. If you like my content, any additional support is greatly appreciated as it helps me invest into future videos. As always, thank you very much for watching, guys. Your continued support is greatly appreciated. I hope you have been enjoying this video. Give me a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again and see you next time.